There's a report that's come out by the World Health Organization which has meat eaters across the world in dismay. The WHO study, which experts are calling the most comprehensive, says that those who are eating red meat and processed meat may be in danger of cancer. That's what the report says. And so there are so many confusing aspects. There are such misconceptions going around. And how does it affect all of us? If you just eat once a week, if you just eat twice a week, and if you're not even having processed meats, if you just have red meat, are you better off? Should you be changing your diet at all? That's what we'll talk about. We have the best experts over here. First, let's take a quick look at what this report really says.
Bad news for those who love red meat. The WHO has come out with a report stating that eating ham, hot dogs and processed meat can get you into deep trouble. The WHO has found links between consumption of processed meat and cancer of the stomach, colon or pancreas. A group of 22 scientists from the WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer evaluated over 800 studies on meat and cancer. They found that the carcinogenic compounds formed when red meat is cooked at a high temperature triggers cancer. But is eating meat worse than smoking a cigarette? The WHO says no.
So let me just introduce our experts this evening. We have Dr. Amish Vora. He is a cancer specialist from Max Hospital, and of course, a well-known nutrition and health expert, Dr. Shikha Sharma as well. We also hope to be joined by the Center for Science and Environment's Dr. Sunita Narayan. Now, first talking about really is the WHO report. Now, we've all gone through that. I think everybody, anyone who is a foodie is going through with a fine-tooth comb. What we want to know is that one study has also said that India is one of the smallest, consumers of meat. How does this report affect all of us, Dr. Vora?
So, as you rightly said, the report clearly says that if you consume more than 50 grams of red processed meat over a longer period of time, your chances of cancer, cancer of large intestine increases by 18%. Now this 18% also is not 18%, it's a relative risk. So in terms of a large consumers of red meat, if you see, assuming that, let's take an example of UK where we have the data, out of 1,000 people who, normal population, you have 60 people who will be suffering from large intestine cancer. Another 1,000 people who are consuming more than 50 grams of red processed meat, 66 will have large intestine cancer. So increase of 6 and a relative increase of 18%. But the important point is WHO and IARC, the Lyon, France, which is also one of the very good agency for cancer research, they have put into group 1 category. What it means is that it does cause cancer. So that is very important for us to understand that this report says categorically the processed meat, red meat.
So you agree that every time we have a bite of meat, that we are making ourselves vulnerable to cancer?
No, I don't say that. The report does not say that. What report says that large quantity over a large period of time causes increased irritation by releasing some chemical called as N-nitrosamines. That may cause or may make you vulnerable for cancer, not just every meat. Large is, they have defined as more than 50 grams per day.
Okay.
That amounts to it's something which holds in your palm.
So like a piece of meat or something like that.
Something like that.
Okay. So Sunita Narayan, I remember the Center for Science and Environment when it came out with its report on antibiotics in chicken. Now we have this report. How are you reading this?
Sunitra, this is a much bigger issue than just antibiotics in meat. Antibiotics in meat is about what is used when you grow food or manufacture food. And that is one part of the problem that WHO has pointed to. But I think what it is saying is much more significant than what I have just heard on your program. I think what WHO has very clearly said is that all governments in the world must now have a food diet guideline for its people which limits the use of processed meat and also, and this points to processed food, and also looks at red meat. And this is particularly significant because, as you know, in the US there has been a very bitter battle, because the US government has come up with a draft guideline where it has talked about limiting processed meat, and there has been a huge opposition to it from the meat industry. So you are beginning to see WHO, in spite of all the pressures, stating what is clearly the obvious. What we should all recognize is that processed food industry is toxic for us. We need to be much more careful about what we eat and how much we eat.
And Sunita Narayan, I just want to ask you, when you say processed, because we don't have that many, sausages and other kind of salami, is tikka also processed? Because the definition which is given in WHO is that anything which is, smoked or which is cured. Now, can you tell us, for all of us, the Indian menu that is there, which is the processed meat which we should now avoid?
Sunitra, quite frankly, I don't know. I think this is where the Government of India should now step in, where institutions like the National Institute of Nutrition should behave like what they are supposed to do, which is a scientific institution working in public interest and not in commercial interest. They are the ones who should be advising us. They are the ones who should be telling us what constitutes processed meat in the Indian context. But what is very clear is that India is just embarking on our journey on processed food, and this is the time when we must know, we must not first get to eat all this, get cancer, and then worry about it.
Okay, it's already very worrying. Dr. Shikha Sharma, you've been counseling people about what to eat for a long time now. After this report, what are you going to tell them to stop eating?
See, the first thing which I normally advise is that it's very important to maintain the acid-alkali balance of the intestine, because there are the healthy bacteria and there are the unhealthy bacteria. And if this balance changes, the unhealthy bacteria proliferate and create a very hazardous environment. So now how do you make the intestine alkaline? You have lots of vegetable juices, you have lots of salads to make it alkaline.
And we as Indians usually tend to do that, right?
We could do more, because the enzymes which are present in raw vegetables are not present in cooked vegetables. So if we have more of vegetable juices, if we have more of salads, and we have more of sprouts, I think we can make the intestine more alkaline.
But anything you're going to cut out completely now?
I would say if people are using like bacon, ham, processed, a lot of processed
you would say cut it out.
I would say it's hard to say cut it off, but I would say, reduce it to a point where it cannot harm you. So I would say have it like when you're traveling out. Don't have it at home. Because when you're traveling, you have limited choices, and that's okay. But
I was speaking to this family before, and she was telling me that they're vegetarian, but you have a few burgers now and then, right? Yeah. So when you heard this report, are you going to even rethink that, going out and having a burger thing?
Yeah. But not very regularly, I want to say. But once in a blue moon or twice. Not very.
Would you reduce it further after you've heard this?
No.
No, too much into this. But my main concern is because I've been seeing a couple of parents watching. When I walk down to a mall, say Ambience Mall in Vasant Kunj, you watch parents coming out of the school, their children out of the school, directly to the McDonald's and to Pizza Huts. So it's quite astonishing and quite dismal to see that children coming out of the school directly to a mall and having pizzas and burgers at that point of time.
So to the children.
So I think that balanced diet is what is really required.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to say, you kept saying we Indians or Indian authority. How stringent our authorities are. That is one of the very important thing is. So before we make the government policies or before we start embarking upon those policies, I think very important, we need to read through this report. I'm not saying that you make a drastic lifestyle change from tomorrow itself or from today itself, but read the report. You know that something has been categorized as harmful to your body, and make some changes. And see, cancer is not going to cause by just eating one particular thing. There are multiple lifestyle things which we need to change.
Yeah, Sunita Narayan, please go ahead.
Sunitra, I just want to point out to the fact that, this is a very long battle the WHO has been on, and it's a very difficult battle, because there are huge vested interests involved over here, very powerful industry, both in processed food. The other big issue for WHO is sugar, because WHO wants us to limit the amount of sugar we eat. It wants us to limit the amount of saturated fat that we eat, wants us to limit the amount of meat we eat. And today food is no longer about our choice, it is about industry. And so I think when you're reading this report, I would say you need to be clear that if WHO is saying this, and if WHO has had the courage to put processed meat in category number 1, which is equivalent to diesel emissions as well as tobacco, you're talking about something where WHO has obviously done it still under pressure, so it's probably much worse.
Okay, and you know, I just want to when we take a break, I want to come out and speak to these students who are from the Northeast. They say they eat a lot of meat, and what kind of advice, because traditionally they've eaten that. So how can they change that? And a lot of it is red meat. We'll talk to them in just a bit. Also processed, but is red meat also as bad? We'll talk about that. Stay with us.